Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm back with another video. It is April 1st. It's called April Fool's Day. Maybe we should all take ourselves a little less seriously than we usually do. Ultimately, we're all fools, groping in the dark to find the truth, but at least let's be sincere about our efforts. In any case, I want to talk about something that has been coming up in the news more and more. And I'll be addressing it from the point of view of some videos that I'll be citing below my commentary. But what I want to do is I'll just read what I've got here in my notes, and we can discuss it. So I call it a tectonic shift is long overdue. The narrative that has dominated global discourse since Columbus set foot on a Caribbean island in 1492, which resulted in the death of 90% of the people there, has run out of momentum. In this post, I would like to partially, to some extent, teach history through song. So the world has been pushing back for a long, long time against this Western hegemony, but with not a lot of success. So in 1947, most Jews did not favor a Jewish state. Here's an example of a song that was sung in 1947, I guess, about this state of Israel that was foisted on the Palestinian people. And the lyrics to this song go, "Oh, you foolish little Zionists, with your utopian mentality, you'd better go down to the factory and learn the workers' reality. To Jerusalem, so we can die as a nation. We'd rather stay in the diaspora and fight for our liberation." So, I come from a Jewish background. I don't practice Judaism, although I understand and appreciate certain positive aspects of it. But I have cousins, and one of my cousins, she's a couple of years older than me, very intelligent, very nice person. So I sent a video it was a discussion between it was Jeffrey Sachs and another Jewish academic, and they were all talking about the fact that Israel is a complete, it's a mess. It's a terrible situation. So here's what she had to say about it. "As a kid, I think I operated on automatic pilot, as I think most of my Hebrew school classmates did. I just assumed that whatever Israel did was necessary and good. That started to change once we hit adolescence and began to question everything. Still, I think it wasn't until after the 1967 war, when Israel captured and then kept the West Bank, that I realized how unfair this project already was. Now, under the Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben-Gvir regime, it's toxic to me. I don't like the idea of a religious state, of any religion. I have felt for a long time that the melting pot, or maybe the tossed salad, or both, is the best way forward for mankind to coexist and prosper. I like Peter Beinhardt's vision of a single Israeli state that is a democracy, with no established religion. I like the idea for the US too, 50 separate states that form one country where everybody can worship as they want, live safely as they want, marry who they want, as long as they don't interfere with other people doing likewise. Why is this so difficult for so many people?" Really great. Well, so there was a song that was written in 1947. In 1955, there was a folk singer named Pete Seeger. And this is an excerpt from an article about him. There was a song called "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?" Which was an early stirring of the 1960s peace movement. And I'm quoting here from Wikipedia. The folk music singer Pete Seeger found inspiration for the song in October 1955 while he was on a plane bound for a concert at Oberlin College, one of the few venues that would hire him during the McCarthy era. So you can see the repression has been in place for a long, long time. The McCarthy era destroyed artists' ability to make a living, including this guy, Pete Seeger, who was one of the great folk singers of the 20th century. Leafing through his notebook, he saw the passage, "Where are the flowers? The girls have plucked them." Where are the girls? They've all taken husbands. Where are the men? They're all in the army. These lines were taken from a traditional Cossack folk song, Holada Duda, which is referenced in a novel by the Russian novelist Mikhail Sholokhov, and Quiet Flows the Dawn, was written in 1934. And the lyrics go like this, and I've got a video of the song being sung, but I'll read this. I'll read the lyrics because they're so powerful. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? The girls have picked them, every one. Oh, when will you ever learn? When will you ever learn? Young girls, they've taken husbands, every one. The young men, they're all in uniform. The soldiers, they've gone to graveyards. The graveyards are covered with flowers, and the young girls have picked the flowers. An endless cycle of meaningless suffering. So Seeger's reference to the McCarthy era repression of anything opposing U.S. policy then, which has always been what I call endless war abroad, class war at home. There was another song that came out, that was in 1955, and I first heard of it in the early 1960s when I came of age. One of the first songs that I remember was called The Bold Marauder. And folk singer Richard Farina wrote this song, which I've mentioned before. And there's a line particularly, he says, "We will sing a warrior song and lift the praise of murder." Sound like anybody familiar we know of in the news lately? It's hi ho, hey, hey, I am a bold marauder. Hi ho, hey, hey, I am a white destroyer. For I will bring you silver and gold, and I will bring you treasure, and I will bring you winnowing flag, and I will be your lover, and I will show you grotto and cave and sacrificial altar, and I will show you blood on the stone, and I will be your mentor. This is speaking of the empire. He says, and night will be our darling, and fear will be our name. For I will take you out by the hand and lead you to the hunter, and I will show you thunder and steel, and I will be your teacher. Then we will dress in helmet and sword, and dip our tongues in slaughter, and we will sing a warrior song and lift the praise of murder. And Christ will be our darling, and fear will be our name. I'll leave it at that. You can listen to the song, and this song written in 1965 is so prophetic because of look who's basically they're reciting these lyrics proudly nowadays. Where is it getting us? Bob Dylan, famous folk singer, he summed it up in The Masters of War. The footage in this video, which is below, well, you can watch it, is a compilation of both Nazi German and U.S. military armies. As the investigative journalist Mike Rupert said, the Nazis didn't lose World War II, they just changed venues. So I won't read the lyrics to this. They're in the description, but you can watch the video, and it's very powerful. Now, there's another song that was written that was called 500 Years of Genocide. This was by a Native American woman named Annie Humphreys. And one of the main lyrics in it is, 100 million unmarked graves. Our relatives are watching, our spirit helpers near. 500 years of genocide. Who's left to hear? Song's heartbreaking. That is the legacy of American imperialism, starting from the very beginning. On the endless wars and how they've gone on and on. One of the early theoreticians of U.S. foreign policy was George F. Kennan. For those who you think that the U.S. foreign policy is based on the idea of spreading freedom and democracy, here are a few gems. Kennan was the author of the long letter, so-called, of 1948, formulating the containment policy of the Soviet Union. That policy surrounding a target of a U.S. hostility with military bases has been very much alive. Here's a quote from him. Were the Soviet Union to sink tomorrow under the waters of the ocean, the American military, industrial establishment would have to go on substantially unchanged until some other adversary could be invented. Anything else would be an unacceptable shock to the American economy. Heaven forbid we should build a high-speed rail system the way China has, or build a healthcare system that delivers first-class healthcare free to every American. Here's another quote of his. He really gave the game away. We should cease to talk about vague and unrealistic objectives such as human rights, the raising of the living standards, and democratization. The day is not far off when we are going to have to deal in straight power concepts. The less we are then hampered by idealistic slogans, the better. Sound like anybody you know these days? So the question I have is, has there been any pushback against this? And as Regis Tremblay and John Rachel said, where's the peace dividend? Why has it been so difficult for the American people to go against this narrative? Well, an article from the Geopolitical Economy website, and this is Ben Norton, who does stellar works, writes this. I'm going to be quoting from this article. The United States constantly accuses its adversaries of holding political prisoners while insisting it has none of its own. But for its entire history, the United States government has used incarceration of political opponents as a tool to crush dissent and advance the interests of economic elites. Each period of struggle by the working class and oppressed peoples against ruling class control results in some activists locked up for their revolutionary work. Political prisoner has often meant those revolutionaries jailed for fighting of their national oppression, as is the case with a great number of the Black Panthers, who were a group of civil rights African Americans who came out of the 1960s. In contrast, a century ago, most political prisoners in the United States were Marxists, labor organizers, and anti-war activists, such as Joe Hill, Eugene Debs, and Big Bill Haywood. Today, Joe Hill, by the way, he was hung. Eugene Debs was imprisoned, and Big Bill Haywood fled the country. Today, the U.S. national security state considers its most dangerous enemies those who expose its crimes at home and abroad. There are also many thousands of incarcerated people who never received a fair trial or were innocent of the crimes they have been jailed for. A high percentage of them are non-white peoples subject to second-class citizenship in the U.S. A number are executed, such as Troy Davis, or spend their whole lives in prison. While the United States represents just 4% of the world's population, it holds approximately 20% of its prisoners. Black North Americans are imprisoned 5 times the rate of whites. And the following list of political prisoners are currently detained by the U.S. government and categorizes them into 7 groups. The national security state employees and the national security state employees and reporters locked up for publicizing blatant government criminality, in other words, whistleblowers. Representatives of foreign governments that Washington seeks to overthrow, who were imprisoned for quote unquote violating illegal unilateral U.S. sanctions. Black, Native American, and Latin revolutionaries fighting for the rights of their people. Arabs and Muslims targeted after 9/11. Prisoners detained in the Guantanamo torture center without charges. Women locked up for defending themselves against violent attacks. And finally, environmental activists. So this is the problem that we have on our hands as a citizenry and a country. However, the tide has shifted with 2 big failures. The U.S. grossly miscalculated with its 2014 coup in Ukraine and subsequent war against Russia. Many people in the United States still haven't figured out that this is a war of the U.S. against Russia. Russia was fending off an imminent attack that would have killed at least 100,000 people in the Donbass in Ukraine. The U.S. hoped it would suck Russia into a losing fight against NATO using its proxy, Ukraine. Instead, Russia is defeating both NATO as well as Western sanctions. I'm following this. There's an interview that I have here, and what makes this interview so unique is that it is conducted by Larry Johnson, a former CIA analyst and planner who left the CIA and is now an outspoken critic of U.S. foreign policy. His Russian counterpart is a Muslim Russian general, whose father was killed by CIA-backed terrorists in the Russian province of Chechnya. He is now a strong supporter of Russia as a multi-confessional country. And Iran is delivering an even more humiliating double defeat of both Israel and the United States. It's questionable whether Israel will even exist in its ruthless apartheid form. In an episode that I cite below this in the description, we interview Miko Peled, son of Israeli General Mati Peled, who was born into the heart of Israel's Zionist military elite. He says what most are too afraid to say. Zionism is anti-Semitism, what the true foundation of Israel is, and how the one-state solution is the best option, which is exactly what my brilliant and wise and kind cousin suggested, as I mentioned earlier. But it goes deeper than just Israel. Iran's war, and now its refusal to negotiate, goes to the heart of the matter. We are ruled by monsters who exult in death. Iran is taking a stand and will be the end of the 500 years of Western slaughter and horror. The U.S. thought it could do to Iran what it did to Venezuela. and so many other countries, including Russia and China. But the 500-year-old Western tide has shifted back to the east, as I've written about in numerous other articles. Most people in the West, bathed in Western propaganda and insular in their information and experience, cannot see this huge, literally millennial shift in world geopolitics. And Russian, Indian, African countries have suffered at one point or another due to Western imperialism. Those days are fast ending. So, what would a rebalancing look like? This is just a list. There's probably other aspects, but this is what I can think of. A removal of all U.S. military bases in their containment configuration around Russia, Iran, and China. Israel, no longer a Jewish state, but a non-sectarian democratic state for both Palestinians as well as Israelis. A drastic reduction in U.S. military spending based on abandonment of its overseas bases, ending its Golden Dome and other expensive boondoggles. And NATO, removal of all U.S. military bases in Europe and Turkey. Reconfiguration of the United Nations to give more seats on the UN Security Council to India, Brazil, and an African seat, and greater power to the General Assembly. Eliminate internal repressive structures in the United States, such as the Homeland Security and ICE. There's 17 quote-unquote intelligence agencies. Why do we need all of them? They're like paranoia laboratories. In the CIA and other covert action secret elements, the CIA should only provide intelligence and should not be involved in covert operations. Stop U.S. interference in Latin America, Asia, Africa, and all support for color revolutions. The Ukraine regime brought to book for its crimes that have been thoroughly documented, as well as Israel. Drastic reform of the U.S. system of executive, legislative, and judicial branches, no more lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States, and Citizens United, and the power of lobbies over the legislative process, and so on. And revocation of the Patriot Act and other laws which violate the Bill of Rights. And finally, remove the US dollar as the world currency. Just this morning, I was listening to Larry Wilkinson, who says that the Chinese government is actually planning on that. A final note. These three defining wars in Ukraine, Palestine, and in Iran are ultimately about human values. It's significant that the Iranian video starts with a Native American and includes an Asian Japanese and an Asian Vietnamese, as well as Palestinians who could be Christian or Muslim, as well as Iranians. Native Americans, Asians of different cultures, but they all share a common humanity. And any human with a heart, regardless of their beliefs, understands why Iran is fighting as it does and why Russia is also fighting as it does. To defend one's own and to defend the defenseless, that is praiseworthy. So that's where I will end it. And if you would like to support my work, you can, put a like or a share. Please discuss this with your friends. I strongly recommend that you watch the videos beneath my presentation here on Substack, and also you can go to my store and buy what I call my information billboard T-shirts. One of which is this one right here, which encapsulates the essence of what I'm talking about. Be kind. Try it today. So thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.